Right now, as you listen to this, there are 10 quintillion insects alive on Earth. That is 10 followed by 18 zeros. For every single human being on this planet, there are 1.4 billion insects. They outweigh all humanity combined. And yet, most of us walk past them every single day without a second thought. Hello there and welcome to the Sleepy Science Facts channel. Tonight we will be drifting into the world of insects. Not just the ones you recognize, not just the bees and the butterflies and the beetles you have seen in the garden, but the entire vast, ancient, and astonishing kingdom of creatures that outnumber everything else on land and have been doing so for hundreds of millions of years. Insects were flying through the air before the first dinosaur ever walked the earth. They have survived every mass extinction. They pollinate the food that feeds the world. They decompose the dead. They inspire engineers. They communicate in ways we are still learning to decode. They feel things that science is only beginning to acknowledge. And they are, in almost every measurable way, the most successful animals that have ever lived on this planet. After centuries of entomological study, our understanding of insect life has grown deeper and more surprising with every decade. Yet there remain, in most people's minds, simply the small things that crawl and fly and occasionally find their way into the kitchen. This video is an invitation to look again, to let the familiar become extraordinary, to let the small reveal itself as something genuinely vast. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, all you need to do is relax. Let your body soften and allow your breathing to slow and allow the day to gently fade away as we explore the mysteries of the insect kingdom together. Let's begin. Insects are the oldest flying animals on Earth, and they took to the air roughly 150 million years before any bird or bat ever existed. The first winged insect appeared in the fossil record about 320 million years ago, during the Carboniferous period, when the atmosphere contained more oxygen than it does today and the land was covered in vast cold forests of enormous tree ferns and giant club mosses. The extra oxygen may have allowed larger bodies and more efficient flight muscles, and some insects of that era grew to sizes that seem almost impossible by modern standards. Meganura, a dragonfly-like insect from this period, had a wingspan of up to 70 centimeters, roughly the width of a large serving tray. It hunted through the ancient forest canopy the way hawks hunt today, at the top of the food chain in a world that would not produce its first reptile for another 20 million years. Insects ruled the air for over 100 million years in complete solitude before any vertebrate joined them. When you watch a dragonfly pause in the air above a pond today, turning its enormous compound eyes in every direction, you are watching something whose basic design has not changed in over 300 million years. It is not a primitive creature. It is a perfected one. Insects have conquered virtually every habitat on Earth except the open ocean, and the reasons for their success come down to a combination of small size, rapid reproduction, and an extraordinary ability to evolve. Their small bodies require very little food and energy to sustain, which means they can survive on resources too sparse to support large animals. A single gram of leaf material can sustain a caterpillar for days. Their reproductive rates are staggering. A single female housefly can produce up to 500 eggs in a lifetime, and under ideal conditions, her descendants, all reproducing at the same rate, could theoretically cover the earth in a layer of flies within a few months if nothing intervened. This is not a nightmare scenario, but a mathematical illustration of the engine that drives insect evolution. Rapid reproduction means rapid generation time, which means natural selection can act quickly, producing adaptations to new environments in decades rather than millennia. It is why insects have colonized the inside of jet fuel tanks, the brine of salt lakes, the ice of glacier, the wax and honeycombs, and the packaging of seal food. If there is an available niche, something with a short generation time and a large enough population will eventually evolve to fill it. The metamorphosis of a caterpillar into a butterfly is one of the most extraordinary biological transformations in the natural world, and what happens inside the chrysalis is stranger than most people realize. When a caterpillar forms its chrysalis, it does not simply rearrange itself. It largely dissolves. Enzymes break down much of the caterpillar's body tissue into a cellular soup, destroying muscle organ structure and most of the body's organized form. What remains are clusters of cells called imaginal discs, which were present in the caterpillar since it hatched but have been dormant, waiting. These discs contain the instructions for every adult structure: wings, legs, antennae, compound eyes, and they use a nutrient-rich cellular soup surrounding them as raw material to build a butterfly from almost nothing. The process takes roughly 10 to 14 days in many species. What enters a chrysalis is a crawling, leaf-eating machine that has never seen flight exits as a creature built entirely for flying, feeding on flowers, and finding a mate. The sensory world of the two creatures is entirely different. The butterfly sees an ultraviolet light invisible to the caterpillar. It navigates by the sun. It tastes through the pads of its feet. The transformation is not a change of appearance. It is a complete disassembly and reconstruction of an organism into something with entirely different organs, senses, and purpose. Honeybees make decisions collectively in a process that mathematicians and computer scientists have studied as a model for optimization algorithms. When a bee colony needs to find a new home, scout bees fly out independently and evaluate possible nest sites, judging the size of the cavity, the quality of the entrance, the direction it faces, and other factors. Each scout returns to the swarm and performs a waggle dance whose duration and vigor correspond to the quality of the site she found. Other bees observe and follow, flying out to verify the site themselves before returning to add their own dances. Over hours and sometimes days, the weight of dancing gradually shifts toward the best site as more scouts visit and confirm it. When a quorum of scouts is simultaneously present at one location, the decision is made and the swarm moves. What makes this remarkable is that no individual bee has evaluated more than one or two sites. No single bee has all the information. The decision emerges from the collective behavior of hundreds of independent agents, each contributing partial information honestly, and the outcome is reliably excellent. Computer scientists have translated the mathematics of this process into algorithms called bee-inspired optimization that are used to solve complex routing and scheduling problems in engineering and logistics. The swarm is not just choosing a home. It is running a democracy more sophisticated than most human institutions. Stay with me now, because what comes next may be the most surprising thing you hear tonight about insects and the way they experience the world. Insects feel pain, not in the way that a human registers pain as a conscious, distressing experience, but in a functional sense that researchers have increasingly come to take seriously. Insects possess nociceptors, specialized sensory neurons that detect tissue damage and trigger protective responses. When an insect is injured, it modifies its behavior in ways consistent with pain processing. It avoids the source of damage. It reduces activity in the injured area. And crucially, it will sacrifice important resources, including food and safety, to relieve the discomfort, which suggests the experience has a motivational quality that goes beyond simple reflex. Studies on fruit flies have shown that injured flies become hypersensitive to subsequent stimuli, a phenomenon called allodynia that is also observed in chronic pain conditions in humans. More recently, researchers have found evidence that some insects may experience a negative emotional state associated with injury, not just a reflexive response, but something that colors their subsequent behavior. Whether this constitutes suffering in any philosophically meaningful sense remains an open and genuinely difficult question. But the assumption that insects are simply stimulus response machines, feeling nothing, is one that the evidence no longer comfortably supports. The dragonfly is the most accurate hunter in the animal kingdom, with a predatory success rate of approximately 95%. To put that in context, lions succeed in roughly 1 in 4 hunts. Great white sharks succeed in roughly half their attempts. The dragonfly succeeds in 19 out of every 20. Its secret lies in a form of predictive calculation that was not understood until researchers filmed dragonflies hunting in slow motion and traced the geometry of their flight paths. Unlike most predators, which chase their prey from behind and react to its movements, the dragonfly does not aim at where its prey is. It aims at where its prey will be. It intercepts, calculating the trajectory of the target and plotting a course that leads to a point of convergence in the future, adjusting continuously for changes in the target's speed and direction. Its compound eyes cover nearly its entire head, giving it 360-degree vision with a specialized acute zone at the front that tracks moving targets with extreme precision. Its 4 wings operate independently, each controlled by separate muscles, allowing it to hover, fly backwards, change direction in less than a millisecond, and tilt its body at precise angles during a strike. Dragonflies catch most of their prey in midair. They eat on the wing. The calculation, the geometry, the execution, all happen in a nervous system smaller than a grain of rice, running faster and more accurately than any hunting machine evolution has produced anywhere else. Ants have been farming for 50 million years. Long before humans invented agriculture, ants in the tropical forests of the Americas were cultivating fungus on a scale that would not look out of place in a modern greenhouse. Leafcutter ants cut fragments from living plants, carry them back to underground chambers, and use them as substrate for growing specialized fungi that form the colony's primary food source. The relationship between the ants and their fungus is one of the most highly evolved in nature. The fungus they cultivate cannot survive outside the ant nest, having lost the ability to reproduce sexually over millions of years of domestication. The ants, in turn, have evolved specialized structures on their bodies for carrying fungal fragments and a complex chemical communication system for regulating the growth and health of the fungus garden. They weed out competing fungi, apply antimicrobial secretion from specialized glands to prevent contamination, and adjust the composition of their garden based on the needs of the colony. Different castes of leafcutter and are precisely sized for different roles in this system, from the small garden workers who tend and weed the fungus to the enormous soldier ants whose jaws are so large and specialized for defense that they cannot feed themselves and must be fed by smaller workers. The leafcutter ant colony is a superorganism running a fully integrated agricultural operation that has been refined over 50 million years of continuous practice. Take a moment to let your breathing slow. Let your shoulders drop just a little. We are only partway through tonight's journey, and what is still to come is worth every quiet moment of attention. The silk produced by silkworms is one of the strongest natural materials ever studied, and the process by which it is made involves molecular engineering of extraordinary sophistication. Silk is produced by the larva of the silk moth as it constructs its cocoon, spinning a single continuous thread that can reach up to 900 meters in length from a pair of glands in its head. The silk protein, called fibroin, is produced in a liquid state inside the gland and solidifies instantly as it is drawn through a spinneret, a process that involves precise control of the protein's molecular alignment, the acidity of the spinning channel, and the mechanical tension applied as the thread is drawn out. The resulting material has a tensile strength comparable to high-grade steel on a weight-for-weight basis, combined with a flexibility and elasticity that steel cannot match. Researchers studying the molecular structure of silk have found that it achieves its remarkable properties through a hierarchy of structures, from the arrangement of individual protein chains at the nanoscale to the organization of crystalline and amorphous regions at larger scales, each level contributing something to the final mechanical performance. Modern material scientists are working to replicate this structure in synthetic fibers. Decades of research have produced some impressive results, but nothing yet matches a full combination of properties that a silkworm larva achieves in seconds using only water and proteins, inside a cocoon no bigger than a thumbnail. Fireflies produce light through a chemical reaction so efficient that it generates almost no heat at all, and researchers have spent decades trying to replicate this efficiency in artificial lighting. The light produced by fireflies is called cold light or bioluminescence, and it is a result of a reaction between a molecule called luciferin and an enzyme called luciferase in the presence of oxygen and a molecule called ATP, which is a universal energy currency of living cells. The reaction converts chemical energy directly into light with an efficiency of nearly 100%, meaning almost no energy is wasted as heat. By comparison, a standard incandescent light bulb converts only about 5% of its electrical energy into visible light, with the rest lost as heat. The LED bulbs that have replaced them are significantly more efficient, but still cannot match the firefly. The luciferase enzyme has become one of the most widely used tools in molecular biology, used as a reporter gene to detect whether other genes are being switched on, and the principles of firefly bioluminescence have informed the design of more efficient lighting systems. In the wild, each species of firefly produces a distinctive flash pattern, unique in duration, frequency, and color, that allows individuals to identify members of their own species in the darkness. Some female fireflies mimic the flash patterns of other species to lure males, whom they then eat. The light that looks like romance from a distance is sometimes a trap. Mosquitoes are the most lethal animals on Earth in terms of human deaths caused per year, and they have been shaping human history for far longer than any war or political movement. The death toll from mosquito-borne diseases, primarily malaria, dengue, yellow fever, and several forms of encephalitis, is estimated at over 700,000 people per year in modern times. Historically, before modern medicine, the figure was far higher. Malaria alone is estimated to have killed more human beings than any other disease in history, and its effects on the outcomes of military campaigns, the settlement of tropical regions, and the demographic history of entire continents are woven through the historical record in ways that are still being mapped. The female mosquito, which is the only sex that bites, locates a target through an extraordinarily sensitive detection system that registers carbon dioxide from breathing, the heat signature of warm blood, specific volatile compound produced by human skin bacteria, and even the visual contrast of moving figure against a background. Each species has a preferred host profile, and some are attracted specifically to humans with a precision that has been shaped by millions of years of evolutionary refinement. Research into what makes certain people more attractive to mosquitoes than others has revealed a complex interplay of genetics, skin microbiome, and metabolic byproducts that researchers hope to exploit for repellent development. The mosquito is not simply an inconvenience. It is one of the most powerful biological forces that has ever acted on the human species. The desert locust can transform from a solitary, harmless grasshopper into a member of a devastating swarm containing billions of individuals, and the trigger for this transformation is a single sensory stimulus. When grasshoppers in a desert region experience crowding, the repeated brushing of their hind legs against other individuals activates touch receptors that trigger a cascade of hormonal and neurological changes. Within hours, their color shifts from cryptic green or brown to a vivid yellow and black warning coloration. Their behavior changes from solitary and avoidant to gregarious and attracted to other individuals. Their body chemistry changes, their metabolism speeds up, and they become capable of sustained flight covering hundreds of kilometers per day. A mature desert locust swarm can contain 40 to 80 billion insects, covering up to 2,000 square kilometers of sky. A swarm of this size consumes the equivalent food of 35,000 people per day, stripping vegetation from entire regions in hours. The transformation from harmless grasshopper to swarming locust is one of the most dramatic phase changes in the animal kingdom, and understanding its mechanism has become one of the most important problems in agricultural science. Researchers have identified serotonin, the same neurotransmitter associated with mood regulation in humans, as a key mediator of the crowding response that triggers the transformation. The chemistry of swarming and the chemistry of mood share a common molecular thread. Pause here for a moment. Notice the weight of your body where you are lying. Notice your breathing. Slow and easy. The world outside is full of insects right now, going about their ancient business in the dark. And you are here, warm and still, learning their secrets. There is nowhere else you need to be. Termites build structures that, scaled to human size, would dwarf any skyscraper ever constructed. African termite mounds can reach heights of 9 meters, but the visible structure above ground is only a small part of the total construction. The underground portion can extend several meters deeper and spread across an area of hundreds of square meters, with a network of chambers, galleries, fungus gardens, nurseries, and ventilation shafts of extraordinary architectural complexity. The mounds maintain a remarkably stable internal temperature and humidity despite extreme fluctuations in the external environment, a feat of passive climate control that has inspired architects and engineers studying natural ventilation systems. The Eastgate Center in Zimbabwe, a large office building, was designed partly on the principles of termite mound ventilation, using passive airflow structures to maintain comfortable interior temperatures without conventional air conditioning. Termite mounds also resist rainfall, maintain structural integrity through repeated wetting and drying cycles, and continue to be expanded and repaired for decades, with some mounds in Africa estimated to be over 2,000 years old. The individuals doing all this building have no eyes, no blueprint, and no central coordinator. They respond to chemical signals in the environment and to the state of the structure immediately around them. The architecture emerges from simple rules applied by millions of individuals, each of whom has no concept of the whole. Bees communicate the location of food sources to their hive mates through a dance language that encodes direction, distance, and quality in the movements of the bee's body. The waggle dance, first decoded by the Austrian scientist Carl von Frisch in the 1940s, is one of the most remarkable communication systems ever discovered in a non-human animal. The bee orients her body at an angle relative to vertical that corresponds to the angle between the food source and the sun. She runs forward while vibrating her abdomen, and the duration of this waggle run corresponds to the distance to the food source. The vigor and duration of the overall dance signal the quality of the results. Other bees follow and touch the dancing bee, collecting information about direction, distance, and value before flying out to search. The direction information is updated as the sun moves across the sky, accounting for the change in the sun's position between when the dancing bee found the food and when the follower will fly out to find it. Von Frisch spent decades decoding this system and was awarded the Nobel Prize for his work in 1973. The waggle dance is not a simple instinct. It is a symbolic communication system using arbitrary symbols, angle for direction, duration for distance, in a way that has no direct physical resemblance to what it represents. This property, called displacement in linguistics, referring to things not immediately present, was long considered a uniquely human feature of language. Butterflies navigate using the sun as a compass, and they correct for the sun's movement through the sky using an internal clock of extraordinary precision. The monarch butterfly migrate from Canada to a specific highland forest in central Mexico, a journey of up to 5,000 kilometers undertaken by individuals that have never made the trip before and have no experienced individual to follow. During the southward migration in autumn, monarchs maintain a consistent southwest heading by monitoring the position of the sun and comparing it to their internal time. As the sun moves from east to south to west through the day, the butterfly continuously adjusts its heading to keep flying in the right direction. This requires knowing not just where the sun is, but what time it is, and using both pieces of information together to calculate direction. Experiments in which monarchs are exposed to artificial lighting that shifts their internal clock have confirmed that they navigate by the intersection of solar position and internal time in exactly the way predicted by the theory. The brain structure involved, a region called the central complex, is one of the most evolutionarily conserved structures in the insect brain, found in similar form in almost every insect species, and is thought to have been performing navigation tasks for hundreds of millions of years. The butterfly's compass is ancient, elegant, and accurate across a continent. Ants can carry objects up to 50 times their own body weight, and the physics of how they achieve this reveals something important about the relationship between body size and strength. An ant's muscles, like all muscles, generate force roughly in proportion to their cross-sectional area. As body size decreases, the ratio of muscle cross-section to body mass increases, because mass scales with a cube of linear dimensions while area scales with a square. A creature scaled down to ant size would be enormously strong relative to its weight, not because ants have special muscles, but because the geometry of small bodies naturally produces high strength-to-weight ratios. This is why small insects can perform feats of strength that appear impossible compared to anything larger. The horned dung beetle can pull 1,141 times its own body weight, which is equivalent to a human pulling 6 double-decker buses. But the practical limits of this strength are also important. An ant's load-carrying ability is not unlimited. At very heavy loads, the mechanical advantage is offset by the increasing difficulty of maintaining grip and balance, and the ant's small legs can only apply force over a very short distance. The real secret of ant strength is not raw muscle output, but the combined effort of the colony. A single leaf cutter and carrying a leaf fragment is doing something remarkable. 1 million of them, working simultaneously, are doing something that reshapes ecosystems. Cicadas spend most of their lives underground, feeding on the roots of trees for periods of up to 17 years, and then emerge simultaneously by the billions in one of the most spectacular events in the insect world. Periodical cicadas, found in the eastern United States, exist in several broods that each emerge on strict prime number cycles of either 13 or 17 years. The prime number timing is thought to be an evolutionary strategy against predators, since a predator that synchronized its own population cycle to exploit cicada emergence would need to have a cycle that is a factor of 13 or 17, which is mathematically difficult for biological cycles to achieve. When emergence comes, the density of cicadas can reach over 1.5 million per acre in some forests. The noise they produce, a collective chorus that can reach over 100 decibels, is used for mate attraction, and the sheer volume serve an additional function, overwhelming the hearing of birds and reducing their ability to coordinate effective predation. The strategy is called predator satiation, swamping the predators with more prey than they can possibly consume, so that the vast majority of individuals survive to reproduce. The cicadas feed almost nothing in 17 years underground. They emerge, sing, mate, lay eggs, and die, all within a few weeks. The eggs hatch into nymph that burrow down into the soil and begin the next 17-year cycle. The timing is written into their biology with precision that suggests something close to a biological clock calibrated to the decade. Let the night settle around you now. You have been listening for a while, and your body knows it. Let your muscles soften. Let your thoughts drift. There is more to come, and all of it will find you gently. The bombardier beetle defends itself with a boiling chemical spray, and the engineering precision of the mechanism has no equivalent in the rest of the animal kingdom. When threatened, the beetle mixes two chemicals stored separately in its abdomen, forcing them into a reaction chamber where enzymes catalyze an explosive exothermic reaction that brings the mixture to 100 degrees Celsius almost instantaneously. This boiling spray is then fired through a rotating nozzle at the tip of the abdomen in rapid pulses, up to 500 per second, producing an audible popping sound and a burning, irritating blast that can be directed with considerable accuracy at an attacker. The beetle's own tissues are protected from the heat by the speed of the process and by a physical structure in the reaction chamber that confines the burst to the nozzle direction. Engineers studying the mechanism have found that the pulse firing is not simply an incidental feature, but serves an important function, preventing the beetle from overheating its own body while maintaining a sustained output of spray. The principle of pulse ejection for thermal management has informed research into spray systems used in aerospace and in certain types of medical inhaler design. A small insect evolved a controlled explosive chemical weapon more than 100 million years ago, and human engineers are still finding things in its design worth borrowing. Some insect performed what can only be described as agriculture at a level of complexity that required humans thousands of years to develop independently. The ambrosia beetles of tropical and subtropical forests bore into wood and inoculate their tunnels with specific strains of fungus that they carry in specialized structures called mycangia, tiny pockets in their exoskeleton designed for exactly this purpose. The fungus grows on the tunnel walls, providing the primary food source for the beetle and its larvae. The beetle actively weeds out competing fungi that colonize the tunnel, applies antimicrobial secretions to maintain the purity of the crop, and selects specific tree species that provide optimal growing conditions for a particular fungal strain. Over millions of years, the fungi cultivated by ambrosia beetles have become completely dependent on the beetle for dispersal, having lost their ability to spread through conventional spore release in many species. The relationship is obligate, meaning neither partner can survive without the other in the long term. There are over 3,000 species of ambrosia beetle known, and they represent at least 7 independent evolutionary origins of fungus farming, suggesting that the ecological logic of this lifestyle is compelling enough that evolution has arrived at it again and again from different starting points. The beetle farmer is not a curiosity. It is a demonstration that the fundamental economic logic of agriculture is accessible to any organism with enough complexity and the right ecological conditions. The eyes of a mantis shrimp, one of the insect kingdom's distant relatives in the broader world of arthropods, process color in a way so different from human vision that it prompted researchers to completely rethink their assumptions about what eyes are for. But within the insect world, vision takes forms no less extraordinary. The compound eyes of a dragonfly contain up to 30,000 individual optical units called armatidia, each pointing in a slightly different direction, collectively covering nearly the entire sphere around the insect's head. Each armatidium functions as a tiny independent lens and photoreceptor, and the brain combines the signals from all of them into a mosaic image that, while lower in resolution than the image formed by a vertebrate eye, provides a panoramic view with an extremely high refresh rate, allowing the dragonfly to track fast-moving prey against complex visual backgrounds. Many insects also see wavelengths of light that humans cannot perceive. Bees see in ultraviolet, and flowers of ultraviolet patterns, called nectar guides, that are invisible to human eyes but serve as landing instructions for pollinators, directing them to the center of the flower like runway lights guiding an aircraft to touchdown. Some butterflies can see polarized light, which they use for navigation and for identifying water surfaces. The insect world is visually rich in wavelengths and dimensions that our own eyes are completely blind to, and the flowers, landscapes, and other insects that surround and present a visual world we can only partially reconstruct using instruments. The fig wasp and the fig tree have been locked in a relationship so intimate and so ancient that neither could exist without the other, and the story of how it works is one of the most intricate in all of biology. Every fig fruit contains hundreds of tiny flowers inside a closed chamber. The only way pollen can reach those flowers is through a single tiny hole at one end of the fruit, the ostiole, just barely large enough for a specific species of fig wasp to enter. The female wasp, carrying pollen from the fig she was born inside, squeezes through the ostiole, often losing her wings and antennae in the process, and pollinates the flowers as she lays her eggs inside some of them. The wasp dies inside the fruit. Her offspring hatch, mate with each other inside the fig, and the females collect pollen before chewing their way out through the fruit wall to begin the cycle again. The fig and its specific wasp have co-evolved for approximately 90 million years, each driving the other's adaptations in a tightly coupled evolutionary dance. Without the wasp, the fig cannot reproduce. Without the fig, the wasp has nowhere to lay its eggs. Every fig you have ever eaten is the product of this relationship. The fig fruit is a nursery, a pollen delivery system, and a food source, all in one structure, made possible by a wasp that spent its entire adult life inside a piece of fruit. We are nearing the end of tonight's journey, but do not drift away just yet, because what remains is worth staying for. Insects were the first animals to evolve eusociality, the most complex form of social organization in the animal kingdom, in which individuals sacrifice their own reproduction to support the reproduction of others. The evolution of eusociality, seen in ants, bees, wasps, and termites, is one of the most discussed problems in evolutionary biology because it seems to contradict the fundamental principle of natural selection, which predicts that individuals should act to maximize their own reproductive success. The resolution to this puzzle came partly from the work of the biologist William Hamilton in the 1960s, who showed that natural selection can favor behaviors that reduce individual reproduction if those behaviors sufficiently increase the reproduction of close relatives who carry copies of the same genes. In bee colonies, where workers share 3/4 of their genes with their sisters due to the unusual genetics of the hive, it is sometimes more efficient in genetic terms for a worker to raise sisters and to reproduce herself. But the full story of eusociality is more complex than kin selection alone, and involves ecological factors including the availability of defensible nests, the advantages of division of labor, and the protection against parasites that large groups provide. Whatever the mechanism, the result is a form of social organization in which the colony functions as a single integrated unit, capable of behaviors and achievements that no individual could approach. The superorganism is not a metaphor. It is, in a meaningful biological sense, real. The sounds of the insect world form one of the richest and most complex acoustic environments in nature, and most of it is entirely beyond the range of human hearing. Crickets and grasshoppers produce sound by stridulation, rubbing one body part against another in a file and scraper mechanism that produces the chirping and rasping calls associated with summer nights. The frequency, rhythm, and duration of these calls are species-specific, and females discriminate between males partly on the basis of call quality, which reflects the male's age, health, and genetic condition. Some moths have evolved ears tuned specifically to the echolocation frequencies used by hunting bats, allowing them to detect an approaching bat in time to take evasive action. Some species of moth jam the bat sonar by producing rapid ultrasonic clicks that interfere with the bat's ability to form a coherent echo image. The acoustic arms race between bats and moths has been running for tens of millions of years and has driven the evolution of extraordinary sensitivity and precision in both predator and prey. Beetles communicate through substrate vibration, drumming rhythmic signals into the wood or leaf they are standing on that travel through the material and are detected by receptors in the legs of potential mates or rivals. Water striders detect the ripples of struggling insects through the surface tension of water. The insect world is alive with signals at every frequency, in every medium, conducted through air and water and wood and ground, most of it invisible to the senses we rely on. Insects have shaped the course of human history more profoundly than any army or emperor. The role of the Anopheles mosquito in spreading malaria determined which regions of the world Europeans could colonize and which proved too deadly for permanent settlement. The flea, as a vector of bubonic plague, killed perhaps a third of the population of Europe in the 14th century in an epidemic that altered the course of civilization, redistributed wealth, ended the feudal labor system in many regions, and changed the trajectory of art, philosophy, and religion. The silkworm supported an entire civilization along the Silk Road for thousands of years, and the secret of silk production was so valuable that Chinese law punished the export of silkworm eggs or mulberry seed with death. The boll weevil, a beetle that attacks cotton plants, devastated the American South in the early 20th century and forced a shift in agriculture that ultimately contributed to the great migration of African Americans to northern cities, one of the most significant demographic movements in American history. The role of bees in pollinating food crops is estimated to contribute hundreds of billions of dollars to the global food supply each year, and the decline of bee populations in recent decades has become one of the most closely monitored environmental concerns in the world. These are not incidental connections. They are illustrations of how deeply and irreversibly the history of humanity is interwoven with the lives of creatures we rarely stop to consider. The diversity of insects is so vast that no one knows how many species exist. About 1 million species have been formally described and named, but estimates of the total number of insect species alive today range from 2 million to 30 million or more. New species are discovered every year, not just in remote tropical rainforests, but in city parks, backyard gardens, and museum collections. Many of the undescribed species are small, cryptic, and specialists in narrow ecological niches, which makes them easy to overlook but no less ecologically important. The insects that have not yet been discovered and named are a reminder of the limits of our knowledge, but also the depth of life on Earth. The catalogue of known species, impressive as it is, may represent only a fraction of the actual biological diversity that insects contain. In every soil sample from a tropical forest, in every sweep of a net through tall grass, in every bark crevice in an old woodland, there is likely at least one species that has never been formally studied, whose life cycle, behavior, and ecological relationships are entirely unknown. The insect world is the largest unexplored frontier remaining in biology, and it is all around us, underfoot and overhead, in every season, in every country, conducting its ancient and elaborate business with complete indifference to whether anyone is paying attention. And so we drift gently back from the world of insects, carrying with us the quiet wonder of everything we have visited tonight. We stood in the shadow of a carboniferous giant dragonfly and watched flight being invented for the first time. We followed a monarch butterfly across a continent it had never seen, guided by the sun and a clock in its brain. We listened to bees vote on where to build a home and found a democracy older than any human institution. We watched a caterpillar dissolve itself into soup and be rebuilt as something that could fly. We found fireflies converting energy into light with perfection that a century of engineering has not matched. We stood at the edge of a locust swarm containing 80 billion individuals and felt the weight of a number too large to hold. We traced the ancient farming practices of ants and beetles, the chemical weapons of bombardier beetles, and the intimate molecular embrace of the fig and its wasp. We looked at the history of the human world and found insects woven through every chapter, every catastrophe, every civilization, every harvest. The insects have been here for 350 million years. They will be here long after everything we have built has returned to the ground. And they are, right now, outside wherever you are lying, in the soil and the bark and the air, doing what they have always done, patient and purposeful and entirely indifferent to night. If you enjoyed this sleepy journey, you could support the channel by liking, subscribing, or leaving a calm little comment before you rest. It helps more curious minds find their way here. And if you are still awake, there is another video waiting on your screen, ready to carry you onward into another corner of science. But for now, let the questions loosen their grip. Let your shoulders soften. Let your jaw unclench. Allow your breathing to slow, steady, and deepen. Picture the ground beneath wherever you are, dark and alive with small things moving slowly in the soil, each one ancient and purposeful, each one part of a world that was old before we arrived and will continue long after we are gone. You are resting on a living planet, held by it, surrounded by it, part of it. You do not need to understand it all tonight. You only need rest. Sleep well, and good night.